York is famous for its medieval past, but many of the buildings that we live, work and enjoy time off in would have been familiar to figures from a more recent history. This series of short films looks at health and poverty in the city in the 19th and early 20th century, using photographs and documents from the Explore York archives. Come with me to walk in the footsteps of real people from the past and better understand what it meant to live in York over 100 years ago. Have you ever noticed this graveyard right by the station? There's no church here, and most people pass by without giving it a glance. If you did have a good look, you might spot that every person buried here died in the same year, 1832. This was the year of a tragic cholera outbreak in York, which killed 185 people in under 4 months. The infected bodies couldn't be buried in York's already overflowing graveyards, so this new space, outside the city walls, became the designated graveyard for the outbreak. Cholera is a disease which is born in dirty water. In Victorian York, waste from sewers and slaughterhouses ran into the River Ouse, where people got their drinking water. Otherwise, they used wells, which were often contaminated, sometimes with the runoff from graveyards. Wealthy inhabitants of the city had access to water filters, but even these couldn't handle such a level of filth. There were other infectious diseases that plagued the city. This report from the archives details a case of consumption, what we now know as tuberculosis, or TB. The patient in the report, George, aged 24, was refused admittance to hospital because he was so ill. To help look after people with infectious diseases, the Fever Hospital was opened in 1880 here on Huntington Road, away from the built-up city. Patients were treated in wards that were open to the outside, allowing air to circulate. This photo from the 1910s shows nurses and patients at the hospital, and a very helpful dog. Not everyone could afford to go to hospital though. Remember, these were the days before the NHS, and many had to rely on charity for treatment. Here on Brigg Street, just over 100 years ago, lived William Green, his wife, and their 8 children. This report notes 2 cases of scarlet fever and 1 of diphtheria in the house. Overcrowding and limited access to healthcare meant that poorer inhabitants of York were disproportionately affected by infectious diseases. Nowadays, we have free healthcare through our National Health Service. We benefit from medical discoveries made throughout history, and most of us have never experienced the horrors of diseases such as TB, thanks to childhood vaccinations. Looking back at the common diseases that people suffered and died from in the past is a reminder of the importance of sanitation, medicine, and getting vaccinated.